Hello folks, I'm the white-haired old man, but now it's more flesh tone than anything. But I thought I'd do a video on my worm farm. I guess you'd call myself a hobby jumper. I see things done on YouTube and I get interested in them. Some things I just want to try to see how they're done, get the experience. So I planned on doing some gardening this year. Saw about worm composting, and it's I've been wanting to do it for a while, but I figured now that it's winter time here, I'm in northern Indiana, it's like 10 degrees outside right now, so I figured, well, why not give it a shot now? So you can't go outside and do anything, and I don't feel like shoveling snow, so might as well do this. I wanted to have a garden, but because I'm only one person in the house and 3 dogs, I can't really justify having a large garden. I just could never eat all the food, and my neighbors to me, to the south of me, have a rather large garden themselves, so I really couldn't give it away. I could try, but it just wouldn't be worth it. I thought it'd be sort of a waste. So this summer I want to try a bucket garden, growing some peppers and tomatoes, just enough to for some of my meals and things like that. Also, I figure I can use the worm castings for that, and my lawn, and maybe possibly give them away as gifts. I can see how well a little 16-year-old would love to have that for their maybe some worm tea for their birthday present on their Sweet 16. That'd be just amazing, wouldn't it? But realistically, there's some people in my office that do some gardening. I'm sure the worm tea will come in handy. I don't have a whole lot of plants, but I figured for what I have will be fine. I can go ahead and use it. There's tons of videos on YouTube, as you probably have already seen, about setting up worm farms, how they do it and everything like that. I'm not going to go into great detail on that. I'm just going to show you me loading up the worms, sort of how I set up my my bins. Really, they're not a whole different than a lot of other people, but I figured it's just one more video to the mix, so you'll be able to see that. I'm actually doing 3 bins. I ordered 2,000 red wigglers from Uncle Jim's, and I also ordered 500 European night crawlers. My neighbor, again to the south of me, has a pond just probably 1,000 feet, maybe 1,500 feet away from my house. So they let me go fishing down there. I do a catch and release. I don't actually fry them up or anything like that. But it's just nice to be able to have the worms available, and if they need some, I can always give them to them. Some of the things I've seen on YouTube, there's a lot of good people out there. I think they've got some good information. Then there's a couple iffy ones. Some of the things I saw wrong, I'd say from what I've seen from other videos, was a lot of people using the clear bins. The worms obviously don't like light, so it's better to use a opaque bin, which is what I'm going to use. But I have seen that. I've seen some crazy recipes, to the fact one guy even added oil to his mix that he was doing, which they say oil is not good for worms. I haven't researched exactly why, but it's supposedly not good and you shouldn't give it to them. There's a lot of overfeed. I've seen a couple of these videos where it looks like these people are just loading them down with all kinds of food scraps and everything, which is, you know, from what I gather, you should start out slow, see how much they're going to consume, and if it's they're consuming it all, maybe build it up a little bit. If they're not consuming it all, drop it back a little bit. But there's just some people who almost look like they took their whole compost of food scraps and dropped it on in there. I am doing sort of both on the feeding. I have a mix of, what do you call it? Boy, it'll hit me here. I have a mix of oats, whole wheat flour, yellow cornmeal, and oyster shells. And I got that recipe. I don't have the user's channel name, but I got it from him. And I'm going to probably do a little bit of both. I'm going to use some of that and then use some of my scraps. Again, I'm a one-person household, so I don't have a lot of greens, don't have a lot of eggshells and things like that. And the reason I went with the oyster shells is, obviously, anyone who's done any research knows that the eggshells and things like that help the worms grind up their food in their gizzard. And so since I don't have that many eggshells, I do have lots of coffee grounds, but I figured I'd throw in some oyster shells ground up. It wasn't that expensive. I think I can't remember, it was like $6 or something from Amazon. So that's what I used. I figured it'll just give me enough. And I made plenty to last me probably for several months. So, but I'm going to do a combination of both. Though probably less on the actual food scraps because obviously I just don't have a whole lot of them to give. The other reason that I'm feeding, you'll see I've got my little friend here. I'm using the mix that I'm talking about. My thought is that, such as her, if I was to give her one of those big brontosaurus Flintstone type bones you see in the store, she might be able to eat it. It's going to take her a long time, but she's probably not going to put on a lot of weight, or it probably just not going to get enough food from it. So I figured smaller food, smaller animal, insect, I can't remember where the worm falls in, but I figured with that the ground up meal and everything, they ought to be able to process that a whole lot quicker than the food scraps, plus maybe be a little more healthier. I'm going to give it a shot. This isn't going to be a long video series. I'm going to do this one and then maybe a couple more after to just show the progress as I go. But I said, I think it's because they're going to be smaller. The ground up meal, as I guess you call it, or chow, will be a whole lot easier for them to process, and then maybe be a little bit healthier. Okay? Say, I gotta go. Bye. Like I said, I got my worms from Uncle Jim's Worm Farm. Got them in today. I said Indiana is right now, it's 10 degrees. It was actually like 4 degrees when I left for work this morning. Coming home it was 10. So it's quite cold. I actually had these shipped to work because the postmaster would have put them right in my mailbox, and if they delivered at like 12, that means they're sitting out there for several hours in the cold. So I had them delivered to work. I haven't opened up the box yet. I'll do that once I set up the tubs to show you how everything's going. Uncle Jim's was really good. I had just a couple questions, and he was quite helpful. Like I said, I've got 2,000 red wigglers. I'm going to split those up to 1,000 to a bin. I thought there for a while that might be too much, but watched a video on Uncle Jim's of Uncle Jim unboxing his, and he showed basically he thought 2,000 would fit in the tub that he was using. It was a very small tub. It wasn't maybe 6-7 inches high, 8 inches high. Wasn't very large, and he said that you could probably do 2,000 worms in there. So I've got the regular standard tubs. You'll see them, and I'm sure those will be plenty big enough. So hopefully it'll generate enough worm castings for me to do what I want to do, and I'll make some worm tea and then use it in my bucket garden once the summer hits. So be back with the tubs. Okay, this is my 19-gallon tub, one of them at least, and I'm not showing it, but there's actually a tub inside the tub, which is may not be needed. I saw a gentleman who did a video, and on his, he thought putting them in the second tub and putting the drain in there and all that was just sort of a waste of time because he didn't have that much fluid leaking out. And I guess, and also he was feeding him more of the worm chow than actually the food scraps, so that might explain it. So though I've got it double binned, I'm going to see, and I don't have a drain or anything on the second bin. I'm going to see how much water collects down there over the months, and then decide maybe later if I can throw in a drain. But I figure if it doesn't do that, and I can get by with just having some maybe holes on the bottom for aeration, which I obviously do in the top bin, I figured then maybe all I can do is just sort of put a tray underneath them and then use the second catch bin for another bin once the farm starts to grow or I get more worms. So as you see, the normal holes in the top for air, there's no specified number. Just make sure you get some holes in there so that you can get some air in there and the worms can breathe. And then along the back side here, I punched in a bunch of holes too, so hopefully that'll be more than enough for them to get some air in. And I set this up about 3 days ago, moistened everything, added in some of my peat moss and a little bit of newspaper shredding that or should say paper shreds that I ran through my shredder. I didn't put a whole lot in there, just enough to sort of suck up some of any excess moisture, which there shouldn't be, because they say it's supposed to be like a wet sponge, and you should get very little water out, and I can feel just a little bit of water running through my fingers there, so it should be about the right consistency. And then what I plan on doing is putting that wet paper that I took off just over the top after I feed them. So I said what I'll start with first is with a little bit of the chow, and then move maybe a week throwing a little bit of my food scraps, kitchen waste, my greens and things like that. And then I also have this, which I had from a previous project, but it's just a sprayer, and so every time I feed them, of course, I'll just spray a little water on top, make sure it gets the food sort of wet, at least for the worm chow. But that was pretty much my setup. Very simple, everything from Walmart. You see them, you can buy these cheap for $6. I mean, it doesn't really matter. If you want to spend $9 for a tub, that's fine. Mine have these little clickable handles on the side that lock it. Probably won't even need them, because if a worm can push the top of this lid off, then it's probably time for me to get rid of worms when they get that strong. I said you can go real dirt cheap or spend a little extra money. It doesn't really matter. It just depends on your preference. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to unbox my worms, split up the two packages, or the packages of the red wigglers into approximately 1,000 for each bin, and then I will stick them in here. That was one recommendation I'd make to Uncle Jim, is that when you order online, I order 2,000, and one of my questions was, if I order 2,000, does it come in one bag? And he says it does. Obviously it does, but it'd be sort of nice if they came in, they gave you an option that you want, 1,000 in each bag if you order 2,000, or if you order 1,000, you want 500 in each bag. That way, it's a little bit easier to separate. Not a big deal. They're just worms. So give me a second here, and I will be back dumping them in. Alright, got the worms out. Sort of had a couple of escapees that were in the box itself that must got out of the bag somehow. Just so you know, this is the European night crawlers here in this bag, but that's how they're shipped. They look like they're in pretty good health. I didn't want to go through the whole thing of showing you unboxing them and all that. So what I'm going to do now is just sort of sprinkle. I'm even throwing in all the peat moss, or that they shipped them with. Just going to lay them over here and let them go ahead and start to burrow. Now with that, I will let them go down and burrow themselves a little bit. I'll wet the top just slightly and throw the wet newspaper on top, and probably feed them maybe in a day or two. Let them get settled in. I guess used to their environment. That's what you're supposed to do. How they know that, I don't know. But anyway, I'm going to go ahead and do this bin, and then do my second bin of red wigglers, and there's then also the European night crawlers. So with that, that's pretty much it. Pretty simple setup to do. I said it's not going to be a long video series. I'm just going to do a couple to go through the progress of how things are working, and then hopefully by this summer I'll at least maybe be able to get some castings out. I'm not sure how much, but it'll be a couple months yet before I get to that point. So once I do that, I will take some more video for you, and see where it goes from there, until I jump to the next hobby. Anyway, have a good one. See you next time.